The evolution of the video game industry is something to be admired. What was once seen as a thing that was just for kids and geeks blossomed into the most profitable venture in the entire entertainment industry. That doesn't mean much at the end of things. It's also the most monetized of the bunch. Most mobile games these days are some form of gacha that want every single penny in your pocket. People can make their entire careers based on just playing video games, sometimes not even well. But the fact is, people take the gaming industry very seriously these days. It's hard to imagine a time when people didn't, but that was the case for a while. As the 90s continued to push the envelope for what was allowed in video games, then people started paying more attention to it. The PlayStation was marketed towards a more mature crowd. The games were cutting edge, and there were many games that pushed the envelope for what video games could be. This is when the barrier was finally broken. People saw the games that were coming out around the turn of the millennium. That and the then growing popularity of the internet, it was a 1-2 punch that made people look at video games in a new light. These were both industries people needed to keep an eye on, and even potentially find a way to get into these industries. In 1998, a cable channel was created by the name of ZDTV, which would later go on to be known as Tech TV. It was a niche channel, dedicated solely to covering the ever-growing internet and made to capitalize on the dot-com bubble at the time. This channel would have a handful of different shows showing off what new geeky technology was coming out, but they had one show in particular we're going to focus on today. The gaming website GameSpot had an idea for a TV show to pitch to Tech TV. Tech TV would greenlight it. This TV show would be known as GameSpot TV, which would then evolve and change over the years into what we would know as X-Play. X-Play stands as one of the pioneers of gaming journalism and reviewing, but one day it would all go up in smoke. And we're going to see why that is. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to... But before we get into the major meat of things, this video is sponsored by ZocDoc. ZocDoc is back for round 3, baby! I don't know about you guys, but this is usually the season where a lot of colds and flus are going around. I actually recorded most of the lines of this video shortly after getting over being sick myself. Thankfully it was just a quick doctor visit and back. But usually going to the doctor is quite the taxing experience. Nobody really wants to go, but if they're sick, they have no other choice. Luckily with today's sponsor, ZocDoc, they're here to offer you a more seamless way to see the doctor and cut out most of the fluff. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare doctors of all kinds to find the one perfect for you, and where you can make a few clicks and score yourself an appointment. From eye doctors to dentistry to therapy and psychiatrists, there's well over 150,000 doctors for you to choose from across all 50 states. Whether you're looking for dermatology, dentistry, primary care, eye care, or one of the other 200 plus systems to build the care team that's right for you. You can filter them by location, insurance, among other ways to find the one that's just right. After you find yourself one, you can usually score an appointment up to 24 to 72 hours. You might even get some same-day appointments. I hope I get same-day appointments, I hate waiting. Stop waiting and start getting the care you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/magicmush to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/magicmush and instantly find and book a top-rated doctor who feels right for you. Thank you ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the gauntlet. You know, I always make a big deal about James Rolfe on this channel, and what he did for online content creation as a whole. He was one of the first noteworthy ones doing anything like this, and that's why he gained the following like he did. But that's the thing. He was one of the first noteworthy ones. I've noticed whenever someone starts a huge trend, or changes the landscape of an industry, there's always technically someone who beats you to it. They just didn't take off like the other ones did. While James may have been the one to popularize online game reviews, did you know that there was an older game review show online called Classic Game Room? They were doing online game reviews in video format reviewing Dreamcast games all the way back in 1999. Imagine using dial-up internet and then spending several hours to download a few minute-long videos of these guys crapping on Nico the Dolphin.
What do you do when you get hungry? How do you knock out that big hunger? Well, I tell you, I eat the best, most nutritious mammal on the planet. No, not your Uncle Lester. I'm talking about dolphin.
If you want to go really far back, you can point at George Wood with Gaming in the Clinton years, where he was reviewing video games in the mid-90s on public access television, and probably need to be on some type of medication.
We have a challenge to IDOS. In Tomb Raider 3, create a storyline in which Laura gets breast cancer.
But we're not talking about him today, so we're gonna fast forward to 1998 and talk about GameSpot TV instead. It wasn't an internet show, it was on television, but it spawned from a website, so you can make several actually comments here. Not to mention, you had the ability to download the episodes through your modem. Yeah, doesn't this look great? The dial-up times were rough, people. Now, I tried going as far back as I could to find exactly where the seeds of evil were planted. I couldn't really find a first episode showing of GameSpot TV. The earliest episode I could find was October 1998, so that's as early as we're getting. Also, big shout out to all these archive channels who have made it their sole purpose in life to keep the spirit of this time in gaming history alive. So, what exactly did they do on GameSpot TV? Well, it was mainly a news show, showing the audience the new and hot video games coming out to keep your eye on. They sometimes had segments and interviews with people involving some of the games coming out, and the influence it was having on the gaming community at the time. This isn't really anything special at all, but back in 1998, if you were heavily involved in the gaming scene back then, this was probably a really nice novelty. Just being able to veer into a completely different era of gaming, like almost every single person they interview for the show is a complete geek, and they couldn't be happier.
I think persistence in characters is really important. Figuring out how to scale to larger and larger worlds is really important. It'd be really interesting with a huge number of servers around the internet to figure out how to have an economy that existed between the various servers. Those are some of the longer term research areas that Valve and some of the other action gaming companies are looking at.
And let's not forget they would also have reviews of some of the games that came out. The reviews mainly try to come off as informal or professional. It doesn't try to make quips about buffalo shit or anything like that. It tells you the game's mechanics and gameplay, if they work or not, and judge the games based on that. Nothing more, nothing less. They get the job done, and let me tell you, you'll be pleading for these types of reviews to come back as we get further into the video. So the main thing you should take from all this is that GameSpot TV, and by extension, most of ZDTV at this point in time, was dedicated to a very small niche of people who were interested in the things they covered. It was for nerds, outcasts. The typical person had no real interest in this stuff at the time, minus financial incentive. GameSpot TV had a slew of hosts, most of whom originated from GameSpot, but then there was the main female host and the main male host. Don't worry about the female host, Lauren Fielder, right now. She won't be here long. The one you want to focus on right now is this guy. This is Adam Sessler. This man, being the living embodiment of the late 90s and early 2000s with those frosted tips, get used to seeing him, because you're going to be seeing a lot of him in this video. Right now, the show isn't the one everyone remembers just yet. It's gotta evolve. In 2001, the name dropped the GameSpot moniker and updated to Extended Play, where not really much has changed. They still did their interviews, their news reports, and their reviews. They cover the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox console launches. The show is still more so about being informative and for the niche audience that was watching it, but that was all about to change. The last episode of Extended Play ended with a several-minute-long segment dedicated to LARPers doing their thing in the snow, and they are taking it super seriously.
We're gonna do this by the numbers, everyone. The fighters are gonna be up front. We want casters backpacking the fighters. Who has life spells here? Raise your hand.
Onwards to victory!
Seems that the battle has begun.
It's the end of the day, and like all good warriors, it's time to go home. I've seen some orcs, I've seen some knights, I've seen some stuff I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
And that was the end of GameSpot TV/Extended Play. But in 2003, ZDTV, which was now Tech TV, decided it was time to give the show a revamp. They gave it a nighttime slot and completely changed the format of the show. They wanted something a bit more adult to pull in more audience members. This would be the final transformation into the show that we know as X-Play. On April 28, 2003, the world was introduced to the new and improved X-Play. The show was given a higher budget, a bigger set, and an actual cast and crew to help improve its quality. Even Sessler himself says in the very first episode, everything has been given a significant upgrade.
We are here in an actual studio. This is like a real TV show with a full production crew. That means
we're coming up in the world.
But on top of that, the show also had a brand new style of writing. It had a lot more quips and jokes thrown in, and a lot more pop culture references to get the audience's attention, instead of just giving info to you in a factual manner.
You play harder?
Ooh, it's like she's coming on to me. Whatever, Tao Feng. Sounds kind of like Chow Fun, which reminds me of Wang Chung, and makes me want a Qing Dao. Enough word association. Back to the fighting. While the game has a high betting count, it's not like DOA 3's nice-looking girls who made bad life choices. Here, they look like they stepped off a Grace Jones album cover and were denied entry to a club.
I'm gonna eat you alive.
Of course, you pop a couple of Qing Daos, and everything can look better.
This is the X-Play you probably remember growing up with. Along with Cessor coming back to host the show, the audience was now introduced to his new co-host, Morgan Webb, a very conventionally attractive woman that also plays video games. Sorry. A lot of guys that grew up with this show will flat out tell you they watched it just for Morgan Webb because they thought she was hot, creating their first ever parasocial relationships before moving on to VTubers. Morgan for many years would be accused of not even being an actual gamer, because she was a woman, but there's a ton of evidence that points to the contrary. In fact, as you'll soon see, Morgan is perhaps the more generous of the two, and actually reviewed some games honestly and fairly, for the most part. Right now, all you need to know is, Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb are the two hosts, and they're going to be giving you all the gaming news and reviews you could need in the early 2000s. For a lot of people back then, they relied solely on these two for their gaming news, so just keep that in mind as we go forward. A lot more attitude was added to basically everything. There's always a sort of edginess and bite with some of the quips they were tossing out.
Here's Dion Wei in Dynasty Warriors 3. And here he is in number 4. Looks almost like the same game. If you bought this title on the PS2 6 months ago, you probably won't be impressed. But if you're a novice, or if you simply love to fight the good, mindless, violent fight, Dynasty Warriors 4 is still second to none.
That is one major thing I have to give X-Play credit for. Despite being an integral part of gaming journalism back in the day, if they thought your game sucked, they weren't gonna hold back. They didn't really seem to take handouts from publishers. They would rip your game apart and dance on its grave if they didn't like it.
Here's the thing, if the game's crappy, we're not gonna lie and say it's good because you wrote us an angry email.
And we'll be telling you the truth about the sequel too, whether you like it or not.
The structure of the show would usually have a few reviews, maybe a preview or two, and at some point you would get a sketch comedy skit.
Name is what again?
The Human Target.
The Human Target. And why is it you came up with that name?
I have been fragged more than anybody in the history of the internet.
Now, I've mentioned my distaste for review shows having unnecessary skits in them in the past. I can't really fault them because they had to fill up 21 minutes somehow, and well, this is what you would usually get.
Well, I'm not gonna let some stupid game prevent me from a decent, picing human discourse. Meet Slippy. He's my new buddy that I took around my hometown. Slippy and me became fast friends. He loved the view.
X-Play had a lot of reoccurring skits and segments, something to really give the show that kind of flair. You had stuff like Spoiler Theater, where they would talk about the endings of games that had come out in the past and discuss them, or Cessler's Soapbox, where Cessler would get on his high horse, or actually stay on his high horse, and talk about the inner workings of the gaming industry and what was going on at that time. They had segments where they would read emails and posts they would get from the X-Play message boards. They had several top 5 countdowns for multiple topics. They had a segment where they would talk about weird games. They had a section called Games for Cheap Bastards, probably one of the most poorly aged segments in the entire show because a lot of the games shown off here now cost... The thing about these segments is that some of them, I noticed, are sort of a precursor to what types of trends would start hitting the internet wave by wave. Remember that time online when top 10s took the internet by storm? WatchMojo milked the shit out of that trend. And with Cessler's Soapbox, well, that's just every video essay now, isn't it? If anyone remembers the old school screw attack, before they got sent away to the death battle mines for all eternity, watching some of their older stuff, they were most definitely taking cues from X-Play. I hate to say it, but it's true. In a lot of ways, X-Play was ahead of the curve. They were doing things years before they took off online, and it's no wonder after the show's transformation into this, it exploded in popularity. This new format really took off with audiences. It gave the show new life, and it was easily the most popular show Tech TV had at the time. And if you're wondering, yes, of course I grew up with X-Play. I saw a fair share of it in my youth. I had to have discovered it in, I believe, 2005 when I was just 7. The review that stuck in my mind forever was when they were showing off the Legend of Zelda Minish Cap and centered the mushrooms in the game as if it were a different type of mushroom.
Can we show this?
And my dumbass 7-year-old self thought it was actually in the game. The one I definitely remember, and probably a lot of you do too, is the console drop test, where they would drop the 6th-gen consoles from high places to see which ones would survive the impact. If you were a young teen or adult in the 2000s, you were basically all set with this show. The show had a personality, and that's why people loved it at the time. Perhaps a bit too much of a personality, though. The evolution of GameSpot TV into X-Play is sort of like seeing your young child grow up. And now X-Play at this point was a prepubescent 12-year-old, and he's about to become a teenager. A very rowdy, foul-mouthed, combative, and rebellious teenager. Yeah, it was nice revisiting something from my youth. It is very nostalgic seeing most of this. But as I continued to watch more and more episodes, the further along the show got, that's when things started to crack. Putting the nostalgia aside, I quickly noticed this show had problems, and it had a lot of them.
Banana!
The following footage contains adult content, KOTOR spoilers, and some stuff that is totally gay.
I'm gonna go ahead and address the elephant in the room. This is a show from the early 2000s, and a lot of the humor in this show would absolutely not fly today.
Mommy, there's a gay in my game.
The 2000s was the Edge era. It was an era of rebellion, especially in the world of video games, where there was increased scrutiny towards that industry, as a lot of people believed video games were corrupting their youth. And as a middle finger to those groups, a lot of younger people, and shows marketed towards the younger people, said whatever the hell they wanted. It was a different time. So yeah, gay jokes, they're here.
Move along, there's nothing Freudian to see here.
Look at that. I got your tail.
Nothing at all.
Piccolo, do it!
Racist jokes? This show's got them.
Morgan-san.
X-Play! Review X-Play!
In the earlier seasons, it wasn't so bad. Maybe you'd get a crude remark or a data celebrity reference here and there, but as the show went on, they got more and more prominent. One aspect of this I absolutely cannot ignore is X-Play's comments about one country in particular, the land of the rising sun. Since a lot of video games have come from Japan, X-Play plays a lot of them and had some choice words on the country. And let me tell you, they do not hold back.
Well, we're not exactly sure how, but can you really blame us? Because who knows anything about Japanese history? There were some samurai, they periodically themselves a rat learned judo, and they invented a religion that sanctifies small trees and fat guys wrestling. Then we nuked them. That's what they turned into a real country.
We all know who will replace us. India, that billion-strong faux vegetarian tech support call-taking behemoth of a nation. Or the Chinese. But certainly not Japan, because while they may be technologically advanced and financially powerful, they're already in decline.
You search up people talking about X-Play on social media today, and you will see people posting these clips all the time, showing you how racist and xenophobic the show is, but I'm not gonna act like I haven't seen worse. Here's the thing though, I'm not a Twitter reactionary. You didn't come here to see an opinion you can see any average Joe post online about. And I think there's a lot more to it than just calling it racist. All these comments about Japan, it's performative. It's for the camera. It's trying to entertain their teenage and young adult audience. It doesn't stop how offensive it is, but they just didn't care. There's no point in pointing out how offensive it is, because they already know that. Their constant picking on and mocking Japan is a pretty constant throughout the show. If you're going to be offensive on purpose, I expect some consistency. But like, sometimes their comments towards Japan don't even make any sense.
Damn it! You guys totally wrecked my shop, and I haven't even named it yet!
Why would you name a shop? Somebody's got to tell the Japanese we don't name shops.
What? We don't name shops? Adam, what the fuck are you talking about? This came out of nowhere too, because they ended up really liking Devil May Cry 3. They gave it a 4 out of 5, and yeah, Devil May Cry 3 is a fantastic game. You should go pick a copy up at your local Stop and Mart. I'm not the type of guy who's gonna write something off just because it's made to be offensive. But most of the time, the joke isn't even anything unique or creative. Aren't Japanese interests really weird, and don't they have funny accents?
Welcome to Shantung Baby Shack!
And some of these skits, well, I don't know a better way to put this. It's like Nostalgia Critic skits before the Nostalgia Critic existed.
I'm afraid you can't escape the studio that easily. I've trapped you in a dream world from which you can never escape. I am Mr. Mixius Pitlick. Some people say Mixoplix, but they're wrong! Who? I'm a supervillain. Don't you recognize me?
What an ego.
I fight Superman all the time. I'm famous.
I'm right here, Blair.
What's your dog's name?
Princess Buttersprinkles.
How's Wolfie? I can hear him really barking.
Wolfie's fine. Where are you?
Blair Butler is dead. I have to go.
Wait! Who's gonna help us assassinate the leaders of the free world? Ooh, I can't wait to stick it to Angela Merkel.
That bitch is no Thatcher.
Seriously.
I know now why you review, but it's something I can never do.
Oh.
Wait, what about the X-Play monkey?
We have a monkey?
It's one thing to make a bunch of edgy jokes at an entire country's expense. It's another thing entirely when this sort of attitude starts to seep into your review process. Another thing that's been said about X-Play is that they had a ginormous bias against Japanese games, or more specifically, anime-based games and RPGs, and this isn't a new sentiment either. Even back in the day, people were writing in and posting on the X-Play boards about how much it was obvious Adam in particular couldn't stand JRPGs, which the show would bring up quite a bit.
Who the hell is this?
Actually, we kind of, we cloned you, we made a replacement version of you just in case something happens. He's younger than you, he's more charming than you, definitely, and yeah, he's Adam 2.0.
He's wearing my shirts! He's got my shoes! Welcome to X-Play! I hate RPGs! I give it a 3 out of 5.
I'm not one to just go off of public perception and cherry-pick clips, and after seeing enough episodes of X-Play and slogging through well over 100 reviews, I can say, with 100% certainty, X-Play absolutely had a bias against Japanese games. I cannot tell you how many reviews of RPGs I saw where they were called the game weird or boring and then given a pity 3 out of 5. Hell, in some reviews, you can tell they really don't want to review these in the first place, but feel as if they have to, as it's their job.
Brave Story New Traveler. It's an RPG. It's an RPG for your PSP. And that's just about all you need to know about it. But since I'm legally obligated to give this game a full review, here goes.
If it's something mainstream like Kingdom Hearts or something action-oriented, they usually get a higher score than that. But don't ever expect them to nominate something with a Japanese anime or RPG influence for Game of the Year. Yeah, I know turn-based RPGs aren't for everyone, but as the series went on, it feels as if they grew spiteful towards RPGs, and anyone who played them. Their review of Baten Kaido's Origins is probably one of the worst reviews I've ever seen. I mean, just look at this garbage.
One of the few RPG refugees that made it to the GameCube's purple shores was Baten Kaido's Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean. Lucky for all 27 of you people who bought it, there's now a prequel, Baten Kaido's Origins. All right, the story. Let me guess. There's probably a young hero with some sort of memory problem who's fighting a vastly overwhelming Evo fascio magical empire.
It's too soon to reveal my hand.
The bow you're wearing really takes the edge off the evil mastermind thing. Cliché burden boy of action who will save us all is named Sagi.
This is kind of overdue, but I'm Sagi.
Rhymes with Saki. Saki! Which I could use a lot of right now.
Sagi!
Saki! Does it count as sexual harassment if her wings were asking for it? You can chain the cards together to add maximum damage, but like any card-oriented game, you're at the mercy of Lady Luck. That bitch. There are new tweaks to the card system, but the changes don't go deep enough to really make a difference.
Sagi!
Sagi! Will you shut up about Sagi?
Sagi!
Saki! 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 Baten Kaido's Origin is an RPG for the GameCube. That about says it all. A 3. Saki! 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 Out of 5.
3 out of 5? You did all that. You barely even reviewed the fucking game, and you're giving it a 3 out of 5? The thing is, they weren't like this when they were still GameSpot TV and Extended Play. They treated JRPGs like any other game, and would give them praise if they were actually good. If there's one group that X-Play did despise with a burning passion, that would be the nerds. And it doesn't matter your race, gender, or sexual orientation, you can be a nerd regardless of your background.
Hi, I'm Andre, and I'm a black nerd, and I'm angry! Ah!
These were the people who were usually enjoying the RPGs and Japanese media that X-Play constantly shat on, and were also the ones browsing the X-Play boards and calling them out for their biases. X-Play made it their mission to let these nerds know they didn't care what they thought, and that they were losers.
Last review of the show, and what a doozy it is. See, we get a lot of hate mail.
It used to mostly come from the Dragon Ball Z fans.
Then it came from the Inuyasha fans.
And now most of it comes from the Full Metal Alchemist fans.
They hate us because we didn't like the first Full Metal Alchemist game, and we said one of the characters looked like a robot in a loincloth.
You have to buy your own mat with the game, but once you've got it, the fun never stops. Until the guy who's been playing Final Fantasy for like 7 years, then he gets up off his couch, and then he starts to dance, and then he has a heart attack, and then he dies.
RPG fans are a special breed. They're hardcore gamers who think nothing of sinking 40 hours into a video game.
And that's why the RPGs made for them still sell, even if they have confusing titles or dated graphics. It's all about the journey.
Yes, parents will never understand your irresistible urge to sit around a table in your basement with pewter figurines or your constant use of the word halfling. RPG Maker 3 is the latest installment in the only franchise devoted to making the dreams of lonely, Cheeto-stained boys come to life. You are joining us on a very special occasion, our celebration of all things Final Fantasy.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I thought we hated Final Fantasy.
No, we hate Final Fantasy fanboys. Totally different thing.
Okay, so it's still okay for me to hate guys who dress up as Riku.
Yeah, it's actually a job requirement.
All
Did you
right.
read the employee handbook?
I can't read.
Since the very start of the X-Play rebranding, they were finding ways to crap on fans of anime, or fans of Final Fantasy, or RPGs. Speaking of which, I have to bring up the X-Play review of Crisis Core. Like I said, if X-Play didn't like your game, they did not hold back, and that goes for Crisis Core. They were, not very kind to it.
If a game features good-looking guys and incredibly stupid dialogue, you know it came from Japan.
Hello to you, too.
Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII is a prequel that stars a minor character from the original PlayStation game, who now gets his own rich, detailed story.
And?
The only problem is, it's a terrible story. Sadly, that dialogue is poorly written and awkwardly delivered. Maybe the script makes perfect sense to the Japanese, but to our ears, it reeks of cliche. Also, if you are a nostalgia junkie, this is the game for you.
It's over.
But for those who aren't already steeped in the rich tradition of the series, the dull combat system and crappy dialogue is as disposable as a purple turtleneck.
Why?
Man, Shinra really needs to redesign those outfits. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII gets a 2
Thanks.
out of 5.
This review got them a ton of backlash at the time, so much so that for an April Fool's joke the later year, they went back and dubbed over the review to give it a 6 out of 5 instead.
Final Fantasy VII is a prequel that stars a
Exciting
character from the original PlayStation game, who now gets his own rich, detailed story. The only problem is,
the story is too good.
Thanks.
that dialogue is
Awesomely.
written and
Awesomely.
delivered. Maybe the script makes perfect sense to the Japanese, but to our ears, it reeks of
Award-winning material.
But for those who aren't already steeped in the rich tradition of the series, the
Exciting.
combat system and
Glorious.
dialogue is as
Indispensable.
as a purple turtleneck. Man, Shinra really needs to
Sell.
those outfits.
At the Gap.
Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII gets it
6.
Thanks.
out of 5.
As the years went on, it really feels like the people at X-Play started doing most of the reviews out of spite instead of actually giving the games a fair chance. Look, I know fanboys can be annoying. I know that. But don't forget that the last episode of Extended Play was Adam Sessler out and about interviewing LARPers, and he didn't seem to have a problem with it. But oh no, in X-Play, he has to interview Final Fantasy cosplayers, and he acts like he's about to die.
Yes, we have cosplaying Final Fantasy fans.
Oh, the horror.
Oh, but we have other stuff too.
And no, I don't really think it's because they're racist and hate the Japanese. That's too easy. It's not like they're consistent with that shtick either, as once in a while they'll break character and give a Japanese RPG a really high score.
Few games have held on to their roots while expanding their world like Dragon Quest. At the end of the night, you'll want to save the last dance for this game. That's why we're giving Dragon Quest VIII for the PS2 5 kisses out of 5. Thanks for the memories.
Another review I saw when I was young was Okami, and this was actually my first exposure to the game. And let me tell you, Okami is in my top 5 favorite games. It's amazing. And it's also one of the most Japanese games in existence. It's based in historic Japan with huge themes relating to Japanese mythology. Not to mention, the art style is cel-shaded and based on old Japanese style art. This is as Japanese as you can get. And well, with all the comments X-Play's made about Japan, they must have hated it.
What's that, Okami? Morgan fell down a well? In the well, she discovered a race of subterranean people who have forced her to be their queen? And you want a 5 out of 5? Oh, you always know the right thing to say. Okami gets a 5. out of 5.
5 out of 5. The most Japanese game you can possibly play, and they gave it a perfect score. I mean, it deserves it, but... So I'm not gonna chuck all these shots at Japan and weeaboos as just because they hate Japan. I think this is actually about the shifting tides that was going on in the gaming industry. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, the late 90s and early 2000s was the period when gaming was going from a niche geeky hobby for kids and nerds and was now slowly becoming the juggernaut it is today. Games were getting more advanced and could now break the boundaries for what the medium could be, and people were taking notice. In 2001 alone, you had stuff like Halo Combat Evolved, Grand Theft Auto 3, showing the world what video games were capable of, and very quickly, more and more people were filling into the hobby. Video games were cool now, it just wasn't for geeks anymore. But because video games were becoming mainstream, that means a lot of people were only coming in for those games that were catching people's eyes. They had no real interest in the more niche ones. You could now play video games without being labeled as a geek. However, now you had to play only the socially acceptable games. The games that made you look like a cool adult. It was so the people playing them could have a hobby while also keeping their social status, and they didn't want anything to tarnish that. So what happens when you gravitate towards something that wasn't inside that box? More like something that was made in Japan and made for people who enjoyed Japanese culture. Well, that's gay! Why would you want to play that? Why would anyone want to play that? Video games were now appealing to a much wider audience of people who really cared about what people thought of them, and so they usually stuck to mainstream AAA games. And this was now the audience X-Play was appealing to, the type that only really cared for the mainstream stuff. They were profiting off of the sudden boom in gaming that was going on, the stuff that made gaming look cool and awesome, and well, anime games and RPGs usually had influence from different anime and manga, which was cartoonish by nature, and well, cartoons are for children, and therefore if you liked them, you were childish and or gay. Just finding ways to crap on anime games and anime fans any chance they get is so strange considering who their original audience was. Like, you can look back on Tech TV bumpers and see them advertising anime marathons right before an episode of X-Play. Hell, right at the end of an episode of Extended Play, you can see right there, at the bottom of the fucking screen, open your eyes and enter an amazing world of classic Japanese anime. Stay tuned for Anime Unleashed. Tech TV was appealing to that audience. The network was airing anime for those anime nerds and was talking about geeky tech stuff, and now X-Play was calling them huge losers because that's what their new audience saw them as.
A recent study shows that some fanboys are scarier than others. Now sure, we have alienated the Final Fantasy fans, and we've alienated the Pokemon fans, but why not dig ourselves in deeper by alienating the Dragon Ball Z fans?
Because they frighten us, and they write hate mail, and they criticize the way I pronounce Super Saiyan.
Five emails right there.
X-Play tossed out their catering to nerds and started appealing to a new audience. The newest breed of gamer, the dude bro. The guy who wishes to not have his masculinity shattered by being perceived as childish, so they mock what doesn't appeal to them, and so X-Play started doing the same. They like guns, and they like boobies, so they started showing all that off in the show. When you sexualize fictional women, it's cringe.
Oh, and your requisite assortment of sexy cat women and lizard people. Seriously, what's up with the feline fetish? It's like an entire island nation of message board perverts.
When I sexualize fictional women, it's cool.
We all know that sometimes ladies in games are generously proportioned.
Yeah, they have big boobs. Scary, oversized twin zeppelins flying in the sky boobs. Here's a closer look at that. As if you needed one. They're huge.
Yes, they are.
It shows you the faith they have in their audience when they think they don't want to read.
You have to go to the very first novel from feudal Japan, The Tale of Genji.
But if you aren't in the mood to read a 1,000-page novel, consider playing the game based on it.
If you want more evidence that's how things were perceived back in the day, we're going to switch the channel for a minute. In 2003, there was the first ever Spike TV Game Awards. Yes, this is the exact same Game Awards Jeff Keighley has been hosting every year, but it was much different back in 2003. Gaming was now popular enough that it could now have its own Oscars, and for this very first one, they went all out. We got celebrities and rappers galore, sneak peeks at upcoming games for the bros, with them showing off the main character's polygonal ass. But we're gonna ignore all of that, and we're gonna focus on what we came here for. What game wins Game of the Year 2003? 2003 was a pretty good year for video games. We had stuff like Wind Waker and Knights of the Old Republic, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Tony Hawk's Underground. These are all fantastic games, and any one of them could have won Game of the Year at this award show. But who was the one to take home the trophy? Well, the answer is none of them. 10 games were nominated for Game of the Year at this show, and you want to know what game ends up winning?
The winner for the game of the year, Madden 2004 EA Sports.
Madden 2004. A football game, according to the Spike TV Game Awards, was the best game to come out in 2003. Knights of the Old Republic and Wind Waker ain't got shit on some John Madden football. How did this game win? Well, it's simple. It's what the gaming industry perceived as socially acceptable. It was a popularity contest more than anything, so they picked the safest option possible. Now, this might strike some viewers as harsh, but I believe anyone who voted Madden 2004 as Game of the Year does not deserve human rights. I mean, at least give credit to X-Play. They at least gave it to Knights of the Old Republic that year. And if you think I'm just saying all this because I was one of those weebs they were picking on and hasn't gotten over it, hey listen, I was too young to know what any of this shit was. In the early 2000s, I was watching fucking Hamtaro and playing Bing Bing Wahoo on my Game Boy Advance. Little Hamster's Big Adventures. I didn't know anime was specifically animation from Japan. I didn't even know what RPG meant. I thought RPGs were the guns that went boom. I wouldn't get into them until much, much later. But when there's a bias, there's a bias. And it really sucks too, because I'm not gonna lie. There are some actual entertaining reviews and skits on this show. Like when they're reviewing a game that's actually bad, it's really funny.
Red eye. Red eye. Not the chair, red eye. Come on, bark like a dog.
Middle dog? Arf! Arf! Or big dog? Woof! Woof!
That's probably the stuff most people remember. I'm not gonna sit here and act like the entire show is just dated garbage with no substance. There is some stuff to enjoy here. But let me put it like this. As a television show meant to entertain the audience, it passes with flying colors. As an actual professional gaming outlet you listen to see what new games that are coming out that you should get, it's pitiful. And it's not just in regards to just appealing to the Dupe Road audience, because even with that, they still faltered. In 2007, X-Play was live streaming the Microsoft E3 conference. This is how a lot of people actually caught this live stream, as the internet hadn't been fully adopted in 2007. But needless to say, X-Play absolutely blew it. Throughout several times in the live stream, they had to cut to commercial break, cutting out huge chunks of the conference. And while the stream was showing off Halo 3, by far the most anticipated game of the event, they cut to commercial break.
1627, these mild-mannered reporters will don their spandex and face an army of celebrities.
If you want any more proof that X-Play's actual reviews had no weight whatsoever, they gave Devil May Cry 2 a 4 out of 5. Well, Extended Play did, but it was still Sessler and the writers at the end of the day. According to the people over there, Devil May Cry 2 is on the same level as Devil May Cry 3 and Kingdom Hearts 2. At least they gave God Hand an actual worthwhile score. But that would also mean Devil May Cry 2 is on the same level as God Hand. I rest my case. Now imagine this going on for the next several years, leaving the 2000s behind and going into the 2010s, where things started to fall apart. Now, I avoided mentioning anything regarding the networks X-Play was hosted on because I wanted to focus on the show itself first. The average person is not going to know what's going on behind the scenes at a company. Well, yes, X-Play was an extremely popular show when it started airing. Behind the scenes, things weren't looking so hot. Like I said at the start of the video, ZDTV was made to take advantage of the whole .com bubble that was expanding in the late 90s, but as many would know, that bubble would soon burst. And then, well, the channel started struggling. That 2003 rebranding of X-Play wasn't for fun. That was an attempt to grab new viewers as Tech TV desperately needed it. But meanwhile, in a different place, a new channel was arising.
TV. 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 TV.
In 2002, a new cable channel by the name of G4 was created, and this channel was created solely to cash in on the expanding gaming industry. It was a channel made for gamers. The entire lineup was content dedicated purely to the gaming industry. Cheat codes, gaming news and reviews, you name it. It was a smart idea. However, G4 in the early 2000s struggled. It was struggling to get any advertisers on board. In order for your channel to survive, you needed advertisers and money, and G4 didn't have either. They needed something big to help them. In 2003, the CEO of Now Tech TV had finally had enough of their mediocre numbers and decided to put the channel up for sale. G4 saw this and saw what they had to offer and quickly swooped in to snatch the sale, and the deal was made final in early 2004. The two channels merged to become G4 Tech TV until the assimilation was completed a few months later, and so it just became G4 again. Now that the two channels had become one, it was now survival of the fittest. Only the most popular of Tech TV's shows were allowed to stay on G4. If you didn't meet the channel's new expectations, the show was getting the axe and you were fired. Of course, X-Play was their most popular, so it got to stay, but everything else wasn't so lucky. Anything that was considered nerdy or geeky was immediately put on the chopping block. Anything relating to anime or all those anime marathons were axed, in America at least. They kept them around for Canada from what I've read. Screensavers was another one of Tech TV's most popular shows, and it was transformed into Attack of the Show. It became a lot more about pop culture and current trends to appeal to a wider demographic, and a ton of people who worked on Screensavers were let go. And one of those people was a man named Dan Heward, who would later go online and write a huge blog post about what was going on behind the scenes at G4. Dan noted on his blog that G4 wanted to start shifting their topics from geeky stuff to just gamer and pop culture stuff. This shift caused massive problems with Dan's job, which was mostly screening live phone calls for the show from actual people.
Bill, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Leo.
Bill, you're a brave man. When Roger and Carmine showed up at your door, how did you feel about that?
A little scary with Scott coming along, but Roger was great.
You knew you were in trouble when Scott Harriet shows up at the door.
Now those phone calls were meant to be pre-recorded and more so for comedy than actually helpful. But don't forget, the average viewer of ZDTV and Tech TV were nerdy, shy, social outcasts. They didn't know how to be funny.
Our first call of the day, it's Christopher in Sewanee, Georgia. Hi, Christopher.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
What can I do for you today?
Well, my question is, what's the difference between CDR and CDRW, and should I get one?
Oh, I love that question because I have a kind of contrarian view on it all. I don't agree with the mainstream on this one, so I'm glad you asked.
He lost all passion for his job because it wasn't genuine anymore, and he eventually lost his job over this. The most damning part of this entire blog post is this quote by him right here. Management didn't want geeks asking questions on our show anymore. Screensavers and Tech TV was built on the foundation of those nerds keeping their network and show afloat, and once they found a new audience to pander to, they threw them away. They had served their purpose.
You have just given me my $1 million! Now get out!
What?
Get out!
X-Play is pretty much the only show that remained untouched when G4 came along. In fact, X-Play basically got the red carpet treatment since it was one of their most popular shows. They started building them a new set and everything. In fact, the first 3 episodes of X-Play when G4 took over had to be filmed in Adam Sessler's apartment because the sets weren't finished. And well, really, all they did after G4 took over was just double down on the stuff we already went over. X-Play, along with Attack of the Show, which is its own can of worms, went on to become G4's most popular shows, but things were about to get even worse for the channel as a whole. In late 2005, the then president of G4 stepped down and was replaced by a brand new guy named Neil Tiles. Neil had previously been a part of mostly sports networks, and when he took over G4, he decided that he didn't want it to be a gamer channel anymore. He wanted G4 to be a channel for man! A channel for the testosterone-fueled, sweaty, and muscular dude-bro men. G4 started picking up a ton of shows, like Ninja Warrior, The Man Show, and the bane of many viewers of G4, Cops. We'll get into why that is in a bit. If this wasn't a major red flag, well, let me spell it out for you. G4 was now a network that was in decline. They were doing anything to keep themselves afloat. X-Play themselves would still remain probably their most popular show, but it also went through a number of changes and alterations due to what was probably a change in the show's budget, as they were also struggling with competing with the soon-to-be monolithic internet. The strangest change of the show was this set, which has been unofficially called the Spear Set, where it seems they glued glass balls to the floor. Why would you do that? What if someone trips on one and breaks something? In 2008, the show got a gigantic overhaul, a brand new set and format, and would stick like this for the next few years. And this overhaul would actually try and go back to its original GameSpot TV and extended play roots, where it's attempting to be a lot more informative than just crack jokes about the games they're playing. The edgy writing and skits were toned out a lot in this overhaul. It's still there in some format, but it's not anywhere near where it was. So it's like they sort of fused the original shows and X-Play into this new style.
You killed me! Who the fuck that?
Hey, you cancel that right now. You're hurt. You're hurt real bad, but you are not dying, Tingle.
But the reason for this change was more than likely a result of budget cuts and having less writers to work with and a smaller studio space overall. There's really not much to comment on after this overhaul. It's legit just like all the other game review outlets that were out at the time, and that's to its benefit and its detriment. It's beneficial because now the show isn't hostile towards any of their viewers anymore, for the most part. But this also works against them now because There is absolutely nothing stand out about them anymore. All this gaming news and reviews, well, why would you go to X-Play for that now, when there's dozens of sources that can do that? Maybe if you didn't go online very much and this is still all you had, but by 2008, that percentage of people was rapidly declining. And speaking of declining, by 2010, G4 was on the ropes. Their attempts to make G4 the man channel had completely fallen apart. They attempted to make a couple of new shows here and there to attract viewers, but they all failed. And X-Play and Attack of the Show were probably the only two shows keeping the channel afloat. But those went south too because, well, I'll tell you why that went south. I had discovered X-Play around late 2005-ish, and of course seeing video games played and reviewed on live TV was jaw-dropping to me, and I caught any episodes I could until about late 2007, early 2008-ish. You see, for us at least, G4 was on a very specific cable package. Nobody else really had that package except us. And then the 2008 recession hit us, and because of that, we had to cut back on a lot of our things, including TV. We were no longer going to be able to subscribe to our TV providers because it was too much. Luckily, however, there was a shining beacon of hope, because my mother was a school teacher, and because she was a school teacher, she got special benefits others didn't. That would be including unlimited data for internet access so she could do schoolwork online. After we lost TV, me and my siblings all very quickly shifted over to using exclusively the internet for our entertainment, and because not many other people really had this benefit around the time, we were sort of ahead of the curve when it came to adopting online usage. Hooray for being poor! And this is, of course, where I became engrossed in online activity and seeing all the entertainment the internet had to offer. I was set for life. You still am. Well, by, I want to say late 2010, early 2011, we had finally gotten out of the hole we were in, and we got our TV subscription back. Out of sheer curiosity, I wondered what G4 and X-Play was up to, and I went to the channel only to see it completely different. Then I checked the TV guide, and to my absolute shock, the entire lineup for the next several hours was nothing but fucking reruns of Cops. Cops, as far as the eye can see. I checked the next few days and did not see a single airing of X-Play anywhere. Just Cops, cheaters, and shows I didn't want to watch. I never even got to see the overhauled X-Play because they never aired it. So after that, I just stopped caring about G4 and X-Play and went back to my days of browsing online content. People have called X-Play the MTV of video games. But just like MTV, it eventually stopped being about what the channel was made for, just to appeal to a wider audience, and it just wasn't working for them. Going into the 2010s, G4 started rotting away behind the scenes. More shows were being cancelled, more firings, and more Cops to rerun, and soon, the firings would eventually reach X-Play. In early 2012, Adam starts to look miserable on X-Play, like he really doesn't want to be there, but he has to keep a happy face and personality for the camera, but he knew the writing was on the wall. In late April of 2012, they would wrap up another episode of X-Play, but as they're giving their goodbyes and to look forward to the next one, something very strange happens in the final second of the episode.
That is it for this episode of X-Play Weekly.
Be sure to catch new episodes of X-Play weeknights at 6:30 on G4.
We are going to have all the latest reviews, previews, live hands-on demos,
And the occasional shout-out to Harold Pinter.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Did you catch it? Look at that. Adam's head suddenly jolts to look at something off camera, with a look of despair on his face. According to Sessler himself, what he was looking at was, apparently someone higher up on the corporate ladder had walked into the room and was motioning him to come here, as they would hand-deliver him the message his services were no longer needed. He was then escorted by security to get his shit and get out. They would continue the show without him, mostly Morgan being the last bastion of the old show. Sessler wouldn't have to worry too much about being left out, as only a couple of months later, the show itself, and all of G4 in fact, wouldn't last much longer. G4 was in talks with the company behind Esquire magazine to sell the channel and become the Esquire network, with a completely different audience to cater to, and that meant a completely different lineup of shows. So in order to make sure the deal went smoothly, G4 decided to clean the slate, and canceled Attack of the Show and X-Play, as the two shows went on and had their series finales. The finale of X-Play would be a reflection on the past decade they had been around, with all the remaining cast members giving their condolences and goodbyes, with Morgan thanking you all for watching all these years.
Thank you guys so much for watching X-Play.
But in a shocking twist of irony, the deal for G4 to become the Esquire network had completely fell through. They killed off their most popular shows for nothing. After this, G4 would continue to air nothing but more reruns of programming they picked up, and reruns of X-Play and Attack of the Show. As more and more cable channels started removing G4 from their TV packages, dying a very slow death, until on December 31st, 2014, As a way to bookend everything, they aired the first episode of X-Play as their final program. X-Play, Tech TV, and G4 was no more.
I'm at Comic-Con!
So after X-Play was killed off, everyone just sort of moved on with their lives. No doubt probably going to get other jobs in the entertainment industry. But one must ask, what happened to Adam Sessler? The guy was basically the face of the show, and they just sort of kicked him to the curb. Well, if you're wondering, we're not done talking about Sessler just yet. After getting fired from G4, Sessler would sort of pitch around trying to get a job elsewhere, and eventually he ended up getting hired by a different network called Revision 3 Games, where he would continue his gaming journalism work. Adam had a huge hand in Revision 3 Games, having his own video series, and even getting back to reviewing some games too, in the Sessler style of course.
Personally, I would have preferred an emo Dante. He would have been quieter.
I'm taking you off the air.
But the one I gotta point out is his review of BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite, for those who don't know, was a game that was universally loved when it first came out, but over the years, people have started to sour on it. Its reception is a lot more divisive these days. But since this review was when the game first came out, Sessler thinks it was God's gift to mankind. He even brought out the dictionary for this one.
This moment, in its odd quietude and musical anachronism, is one of numerous tableaus in BioShock Infinite that catapult this exhilarating meditation. BioShock Infinite is filled with these details at every moment, manifesting a verisimilitude that is at once mysterious and exacting. To not stop and linger at these details, along with the audio logs, is to miss one of the greatest pleasures in video games. While the backdrops themselves are as stunning as everything else in the game, verticality, landscape variety, and Elizabeth's hair powers provide deeply gratifying inventiveness to the proceedings that control smoothly and precisely.
Adam sort of became the face of Revision 3. I mean, he was sort of the only guy there with any notoriety. But also when you watch some of his interviews, particularly the ones at E3, you can tell there was now an added component to his demeanor.
Everyone, E3, Rev 3 Games, Vivid Touch booth. This game we're about to see next really is one of the most unique offerings out here on the floor. I interviewed on the first Forza. Good. So now you can look at something and be like, oh, Adam is that bad. I finally realized it. Let me. Do you explain away how the spirit world exists and like why? That was kind of like the entire planet was pretty much sort of wiped off the face of the earth. How do you sort of build that into? Is there any sense of regret?
The Insane Clown Posse shared their views on the staff of X-Play.
Mostly they're all crackheads and drunks and stuff.
I mean, they weren't wrong. Revision 3 wouldn't last very long. Only until about 2014 until it was shut down. The YouTube account has been updated for 11 years, and that was another chapter in Sessler's story down the tubes. After this, he would just sort of piddle around. He would pop up here and there. He and Morgan would reunite for 1 year in 2015 to cover Bethesda's E3 2015 conference.
And those details were, of course, really oriented at the fans who have played previous games and to be able to pick out little references and little things that were in the previous games.
But after this, nothing of note would happen for several years. As the 2010s were going along, there was a disturbance in the force. A disturbance involving gaming journalism, a giant dancing peanut, and things were never the same. Due to its age now reaching over a decade, people started feeling nostalgic for X-Play, and while it had many problems, it also represented a simpler time when gaming journalism didn't take itself so seriously. There definitely was an appeal to X-Play, but who it was appealing to and whether it was worth it in the end is up for debate. A lot of people missed X-Play and wished it would return in some shape or form. But, as they say, be careful what you wish for. Some people in positions of power at Comcast saw the growing nostalgia for X-Play and G4 and came up with a brilliant idea. On July 24th, 2020, this video suddenly dropped online. G4 was coming back, baby. A few months later, a ton of people from G4 would come back for a very special G4 holiday reunion. This would of course include people from Attack of the Show and Cheat, but most importantly, Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb would come back for the first time in years. The event is mostly reflecting back on all those years at G4 and X-Play, and what exactly was going on in the minds of the hosts during those times. It's mostly just a clip show. Until the last couple of minutes of the show, they shoot a brand new skit with them trying to escape the reunion, as a throwback to the old days as well. And at the very end, they once again reveal the entire network revival. And this got people hyped. Now this revival of G4 wasn't some smaller scale thing. Oh no. Not only did they start making content on YouTube and Twitch, they went the full 9 yards with this revival and brought the whole damn channel back. They were bringing back X-Play and Attack of the Show, Ninja Warrior was coming back, Kid Boga was supposed to get an animated series, they even got Scott the Woz to start making content for the channel. Well, really, all it was they took his YouTube videos and repackaged them for the channel, but it shows you how serious they were about this reboot. But, of course, we're going to mainly focus on the X-Play reboot because the most interesting stuff happened on that side of things. Sessler would be returning for the new X-Play, but strangely enough, Morgan Webb would not be coming back for the reboot, as she chose to opt out. And well, after that, Morgan just kinda dropped off the face of the earth. All traces of her online presence sort of petered off after this reunion. I hope you all enjoyed her presence, because we won't be seeing her again. We don't have Morgan anymore, but we do have some new hosts to bounce off of Adam. It was sort of like a rotating cast of hosts, but the 4 you only really should focus on are Adam Sessler, the Black Hokage, Charity Fraud, and a lady who goes by the online alias Froskerin. She was a professional League of Legends player. Let that be a dark omen of things to come. So this time, the show's format is more so a live show than anything. It's mostly just them sitting around talking about games, or gaming news live on stream. Time to time, they'll hold sketches and skits with a variety of characters in it, sometimes even allowing viewers to vote on certain outcomes. So I can definitely say this is probably the best adaptation to modern times they could have possibly done.
It's me, Sonic the Hedgehog. Me.
But the issue with this reboot is it has the exact same problem they had when they gave the original show an overhaul back in 2008, but even more extreme. It wasn't the early 2000s anymore. The competition has gotten far more fierce in regards to video game content online. X-Play was really the only TV show on cable talking about video games, but now this was online, and so it's lost in a sea of other people playing and talking about video games. So once again, if I'm watching this on, let's say, Twitch, why would I pick X-Play over the hundreds of thousands of other options? I can realistically only pick one streamer to watch over the others at that point in time, so why should it be X-Play? The only thing really making this show stand out was the brand name, and the few big names that got to be on the show. And well, viewership-wise, I can't really say if this was a success or not. What was left of their YouTube channel, you can see they usually hovered around the 5-digit range, which is fine. But for a big corporation that probably spent millions to revive the network, I don't imagine they were too pleased about these numbers. There was just nothing really to make X-Play stand out now. They had simply adapted to modern times, but that also means without any of the crude edginess of the old show, which is what a lot of people remember from it. And, well, without it, is it really X-Play? I mean, no, I wasn't a fan of them constantly crapping on fans of franchises, and them saying we should have dropped more bombs in Japan. That was crude, and it was overly edgy. This reboot is a soulless, corporate husk. And you could say that type of humor should stay in the 2000s. Well then, shouldn't the show itself stay there then? The rowdy, foul-mouthed teenager of X-Play has finally grown up into that 30-year-old guy, stuck in his 9-to-5 corporate office job, stuck in a cycle. He's inoffensive, he's not hurting anyone now, but you don't talk to him because he doesn't have anything interesting to say. I had no idea there was even an X-Play reboot going on, and I live on the internet! It felt like the only thing that could really give them exposure was a huge controversy. And well, that's exactly what happened. On January 11th, 2022, while they were supposed to have a segment to talk about Red Dead Online, they were having some technical difficulties, and while this was happening, Frost saw the perfect opportunity to talk about something that had been on her mind.
But I actually want to talk about something so much more important than Red Dead Online. Sexism in gaming. In joining G4, I was ecstatic to be part of something that I grew up watching as a child. But every time G4 is brought up in various channels, even in this YouTube channel, we have the chat in front of us, I can see you, without a doubt, there will be backlash because I'm not as bangable as the previous hosts. It's somehow—
Talk to him, Frost!
Women do not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Morgan Webb, Olivia Munn did not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. We have done the experiment and controlled for the variables. Adam will read a script written by the same writer that I will read the other half of the script for, but I'll be the one flamed. And yeah, it also happens to Gerard and TBH, but that doesn't discount the sexism of how it happens to me when it does. So maybe for 2022, we be a bit nicer, a bit more self-reflective, and we enjoy the fact that people are working hard to make free content for you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace.
So yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere. Just this rant out of the blue, completely unprompted. And after this, it would cause a PR shitstorm for G4, as it was now all over the gaming news. A ton of people were either coming out in support or against Frost's outburst. It's pretty much the only thing people know about regarding this reboot, this one rant. But then you realize they had segments on boobs all the time on X-Play, and they had Oliver Munn doing stuff like seductively licking a PS3 on live television for its launch.
All right, and now, Miss Munn, it's time for the ceremonial tongue bathing of the next generation console.
Go.
Oh, you're gonna throw it back to me? Yeah.
I like it.
You think they're going for a lot on eBay? Wait till you get this one out there.
That was a lot of fun, and I think I need a cigarette.
And look, I have no doubt in my mind that she was receiving some sexist and rude comments. But you know who also got those comments? Morgan Webb and Oliver Munn. They got a ton of guys calling them fake and really only being eye candy for years. And it was probably hard on them, but they just had to grit their teeth and bear it because that was their audience. This reboot wasn't even a full year in, and Frost was already telling them off. All those years ago, X-Play discarded their shy nerdy audience for the dude bros obsessed with guns and boobs and stuff, and they made this reboot to give those same guys a dopamine hit of nostalgia. They're not gonna take it. You cultivated that audience. You encouraged them.
What Adam is trying to say is that we have a PS2 title based on a series of Japanese action figures.
Action figures shaped like pretty women. Here's our preview of Side Girls. Oh, they're pretty.
And now it's blown up in their face. The last thing you ever want to do is insult your audience. And that is exactly what Frost had done. And the last thing to focus on is, who is she really talking to? I've seen clips in other videos where they show the Twitch chat this was live on, and they're all giving her a wave of support and claps. Was their audience really that bad? Well, it doesn't really matter, as this was a major blow to X-Play at this point in time. And not too long after this, it was announced that the entire G4 reboot would be shutting down. Everything was being removed, and everyone was being let go. It barely lasted a year. All that hype and build-up for nothing. And so, for the second time, X-Play and G4 were once again dead. And probably for good this time. I gotta say, watching a network die twice is something you don't see every day. But that's the reality of the situation. A lot of people blame Frost's Meltdown for single-handedly killing the channel a second time, but it's been a few years. The grifters have had their say, they made their money off the situation, and now it's time for my piece. No, Frost's Meltdown did not kill the network again. In reality, X-Play, and by proxy, G4 as a whole, has no place in the modern world. It served its purpose all the way back in the 2000s, but those times are over. After G4 died a second time, Frost and the rest of the crew moved on to greener pastures, I think. But first we must talk about our favorite Cessman one last time, as he still wasn't done yet. Whenever people mock the fact the reboot failed on social media, Adam Sessler would have a complete meltdown. Oh yeah, that's a major factor I forgot to mention. Adam Sessler was a very active Twitter member for many years, and whenever anyone would show distakes for an X-Play review, Sessler would sometimes respond and double down on it, usually insulting the person in question. Adam would absolutely lose his shit in 2023, claiming that gamers are losers and dead, they aren't worth his time, just absolutely going off on them. At some point, he would eventually delete his account and just, well, become a ghost. Apparently, he had started up an AI company that he would later sell to Reddit, because of course it was Reddit, and well now, he's probably set for life. This man had been there since the start. Over 20 years of dedication to this one show, he was there through every major restructure, he probably saw hundreds of people let go in his time. He was there for the death of G4, the death of Revision 3 Games, and the second death of G4, and in the end, he made out like a bandit. X-Play was an extremely flawed show. It insulted people, insulted ethnicities, and fans of anything that was considered weird. It still lives on as a piece of their childhood, no matter what. It stands as a cornerstone of the time it was made in, the shifting tides of gaming and what the attitudes were. A cultural piece of history that should still be remembered. I'm not here to say you should stop enjoying the show because of its problems, because this show was a part of my childhood as well. Because of it, I got to see games I would have never learned about on my own, even though they would insult them 5 minutes later. It was never meant to live past the 2000s, and it never should have. We didn't need to see it come back. It should have stayed where it was, in our thoughts and in our past. Nostalgia is a powerful drug. It really is. The show would have hated me for the type of nerd I grew up into. Adam Sessler would probably spit on me, but they can hate me as much as I want. Despite everything revolving around it, I can't bring myself to fully hate it. I can acknowledge its flaws and criticize it, but I can't hate it. X-Play, G4, Tech TV, ZDTV, they all played a part in many people's lives, and maybe they made you a better person, or maybe they made you a worse person. In the end, they made an impact. That is their legacy. God bless, like and subscribe, and good night. I give X-Play 3 extremely outdated YouTube stars out of 5.
Horrible, Edith. Just horrible.
What is it, Harry?
Oh, our healthcare costs have gone up. Kingdom Hearts 2 has screwed us again. High property taxes, overpriced prescription medications. Where was Kingdom Hearts 2 during Hurricane Katrina, eh? Oh, I wish there was something we could do about it.
Harry, there is.
Really?
For the cost of sending an email, we can vote for Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne.
But that's so much.
Oh, but it's worth it. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne would never take advantage of our innate gullibility.
Ooh, that's good news. Thank you, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Now, get me my supper, woman. Don't make me use the belt.